I wasn't aware that there's gonna be two of you. So
Ah, cool.
I made an interview about Frank, your vocals.
Oh, okay,
Ah,
cool. Sweet.
So
Well,
we have a small dilemma here, but if you don't mind, I would
just
like to
crack
ask
on.
about like singing.
sure. Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
yeah,
fine.
like the voice is it doesn't happen without Dean. Really, truly, like I mean, that's the thing with vocals is like I can only do as much as I have for a foundation, But with this, the whole point was that we like Dean obviously writes the songs, but also produces the records. And with this one, when we were getting into the vocal production, we made the decision to bring in my vocal coach, who also is a vocal producer. And I've been working with her for 2 years now to really like hone my skills and become a better singer. Um, and when we went into recording with her, it was a different vibe, wasn't it? She
Mm.
pulled things out of me that I didn't know I was capable of, and was able to just, you know, I would do a take and she'd come in and she'd say, okay, great up until this point where I want you to, regardless of what it means, I want you to think about this, and would give me a really quite a jarring emotional
Yeah.
like moment to think about.
Okay.
Not particularly happy or sad, but just one that went against the lyrics, and that was really interesting. It opened me up to a whole different way of performing.
I was gonna start like with you from the very beginning and
Mm.
with punk music, obviously, which was like your first love.
Mm.
But I'm gonna do this a little bit like twisting now since there's two of you in the chat and ask that how has it been like the transition from like a punk singer to where you are now today? Because
Mm.
it's like way different where you started and what you're doing like on this upcoming album.
Yeah, it is. It's just hopefully it's better. Hopefully it's I've got a wider vocal range now, much more depth to my voice.
Yep, you
Um,
do.
and it's back then I was prioritizing the delivery, you know, and
Yep.
it just and it was all feeling and no thinking, no muscle memory. It was just what came out. It was an exorcism at times, It was a cathartic purge, and from the space that we've given ourselves through writing this and the time, um, it opened me up to new ways of being, and that meant that like yeah, the distance that I've traveled from those first
I've
records.
also seen from my side of it that there was a change probably maybe after the third album or during the third album of the progression being organic and natural. Kind of you go to you tour, you come back, and you like I can do almost surprising yourself. Oh, I can do
Mm.
this now, or could I do this? Sometimes there's a question in the studio. It's like, does it sound good if I do this? It was sort of like a yeah, kind of sort of seeing where you go, and
Mm.
then I think a few years ago went to a conscious. I am aiming for something
Yeah,
and I
right.
am pushing myself and I am working on something rather than I am seeing what my body can do. Like treating it, there was a switch that happened, which I think what led to working with Lorna. Um, and that meant that the process of writing in the studio changed because there wasn't this like, oh, I could do that. And then if I can't do it, we stop. It would be Frank would be saying to me kind of, let me go away and work on that. I can get that. Like it was a very different mentality that you would
Mm.
bring to writing parts because you knew that you had the ability to get better.
Mm.
I think not consciously, but maybe thought that there was a whatever you could do at the time was all you better do. Whereas then it became like, okay, I've got a lot better. I could be better, and
Mm.
that's still continuing now, really.
Yeah.
So how important do you see those like early career and with Gallows sort of like just delivering the vocals to where you are today? Do you see that been like very important way for you to sort of understand more well your like vocal abilities?
No, I learned okay, it's important to it's an important part of the entire spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it lives and exists in a specific space. I could walk next door and scream that record as I did then. I could do that because
Okay, so because some vocalists cannot do those like older albums.
yeah, no, or do they just not want to? Do you know what I mean? There's a
Yeah.
decision. What I've been trying to do is just open my vocal range,
Yeah, you have.
get
You have.
access, and naturally, um, that was where it started. So it's very important part for me because without that as a starting block, I would have nothing. I would have never been a musician. I'd be a tattooer. So to me, it's incredibly important. Without that moment, I don't know if I would ever have got here to this point. But the reality is, I'm here now, and I respect that foundation stone. But I have built so much on top of it that I think is beautiful, and I feel more comfortable, and doesn't come with this caveat of abuse towards myself that I don't really often feel like traveling back to there. I know I could, but there's just so much more to do. There's do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah, I understand.
there's so many more places to go and explore and experience. It's if you were a stonemason, no one would ask you to go, in 20 years of stonemasonry, they wouldn't be asking you to go and make what you made in your first year. Do you know what I mean? There's no way.
Understand. Yeah,
So,
of course. Of course.
mm.
It's you have always been known as a like very energetic performer, and when you were in Finland for the first time with Gallows, I don't know even what year was that you played in Province Rock Festival, and one of my friends said to me that's the band you only need to see at the festival. And I was like, never heard. So I was like, okay, I'll go and see what they can do. And the first thing what you did was just grab the microphone, went in the middle of the pit and started yelling your lungs out. And I was like, whoa, that's something that I've never seen. And believe me, I've seen quite many shows in my 20 years as a journalist, but that's been like the most like insane moment of my journalist career. So I wanted to ask you a bit about those like influences that what like inspired you to pick up a vocalist and what inspired you to become like as energetic singer live as you are?
Do you remember the first time you saw someone get cracked? I've never asked you that.
No, I don't.
I don't.
I don't.
But I think I always find it interesting that we are a band that sees going in the crowd as just as another thing you can do. And then I go to a festival myself and don't see it, and I have to clock and remind myself that wait, that isn't just a default.
Yeah.
Going in the crowd and performing isn't something that everyone does, but in our minds, it kind of.
I can tell you where it came from. I can tell you why I did that because I used to, no one cared about Gallows when we started, and they didn't care about the bands that I was in beforehand either. But you would go and play a hardcore show to 30 people in a fucking youth club, yeah, and you'd walk, and there would just be a horseshoe. There'd be the stage here, and there'd be a horseshoe of people around the edge of the venue, and
So
there'd be a dance
like,
floor.
You'd go in the crowd because it was easy to.
And it was because there was room, and I would fill that gap.
That's so interesting.
You bridge that gap between the static energy and the active energy, and you make the entire room an active energy. Do you know what I mean? They want to dance. They want to be told that it's okay to move. They want to not feel weird, but they stand there because no one else is moving. And no one that pays to go to a show is going to be the first person to do that. But I'm being paid to be there, so I fucking will. I used to go, and then if they didn't move, I also, when they would come real close, I then used to fucking take the mic and I'd whip it around my head and push them all out again and grab that space. And then as soon as you drop and there's safety again, boom, they just flood in. Yeah. And then you trick them into being. So it's just, I used to talk about it as like energy, particles. They're static until they start move. One starts moving, the rest of them fucking move. That's what you got to get in and do. It's about stirring people up. But I don't remember
Do you know what's interesting though? So the longer we've gone on, the more and more I meet people in different genres of music. They might be in pop bands now, they might be working at higher, and so many of them, their roots is punk and hardcore music.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I think the reason is that when you come in through that, you have to just like hustle. You play shows to no one. But if your first thing you ever did was go on an arena tour as a pop artist, you just learn a different set of tools.
Yeah, you're
But the
doomed.
one, well, I don't know, you're doomed as soon as people don't do what they're expected. But like you say, we go to shows, and my first shows as well were a crowd of, I remember once playing to a pillar, and it was just us all there was. And we didn't know whether we should play or not because we've been asked
But
to
we
play.
had
Yeah.
we on my birthday quite a few years ago now. We turned up. We were on an American tour with a band called what was their name?
Royal Republic.
Royal Republic.
Yeah.
We were playing
Yeah.
with Royal Republic, and we were on tour in America doing a headline tour. And we got to Baltimore, and there was no one there. There was maybe five people, and so we watched Royal Republic play, and they played on the stage, and they've got like they're just so perfected at what they do. It was amazing to watch, but it was hard work, you know. And Adam came off stage, and he was like, "That was one of the hardest gigs I've ever played." Like he was like, he just looked me dead in my eyes and was like, "Good luck," you know. And I was like, "Cool." And it was my fucking birthday, so we got on stage, and I immediately was like, "Get everything down there." We dragged the whole back line onto the floor. So we were off the stage. So immediately we're eye to eye with everyone. While the band were finishing setting up, I went to the bar, put my card down and told the bartender, like, just everyone's drinks are on me. And then I went back to the mic and said, right, open tab for the next 15 minutes. They all went and got absolutely
that's my
smashed.
sort of my theory is that all those challenges and things you overcome, you take that through, and I think that's why there's so many hardcore punks in all these different projects and all around because that isn't a normal thing to encounter these like completely changing circumstances. So when you say sort of how did those early any of those examples shows shape you, I think they just give you this like, okay, I can overcome whatever the challenging set of things are, and then you apply that to a crowd that are there and desperately up for it, and it's really powerful.
Yeah, and I think that you are also a band that you play in a different like places where you are sort of like an outsider of the bill. Like when you played at Tuska, for example, you played in a like metal festival and you were like totally different musically what the rest was. But still in the end of the set, there were like everybody was partying in the pit with you and everybody was like enjoying themselves at the show. But it wasn't that in the beginning. For the first 2, 3 songs, they were like watching that what the actual fuck is happening here. Because this is not the typical death metal band playing in Tuska.
Yeah. I still find it mental that we played that festival. Yeah. Crazy.
And it was an amazing show, actually. I was also there. So yeah, yeah.
That's cool, man.
But that's sort of like a good example of how to conquer an audience as coming like from like way different musical background to that.
We've done that in a lot of shows. Like it doesn't have to be sort of a death metal to us. We've been in the reverse where everyone around us is like a pop artist or a dance artist, and for whatever reason, that I don't know, maybe there's something wrong with us, but we get a bit excited by that.
Next festival you will play in Finland is gonna be Flow, and that's an indie festival.
Yeah,
it's gonna be like from the other side of the pool.
There's a part of us that is so excited, and I think that comes back to the hardcore roots of like you get given a thing that can't be saved, and then you're like, yes, we can, we will do this. So we get quite excited about being in those slightly, I guess, like outsider roles that you say.
So Dark Rainbow will be released in January. And now let's talk a little bit about the album, obviously, because this is an album interview. So what kind of like process it was for you to make the album?
It's a beautiful one. It was
nice, yeah.
It really was, wasn't it? It felt calm, it felt controlled. We kept opening up space for ourselves along the way. You know, we actually finished Arto a whole record and we were ready to go. And our management actually said, you know, how do you feel about it? How would you feel if you had a bit more time? We sort of were like, well, yeah, we could keep looking. They said, how about an extra month? And no one had ever said that to us, you know? And we took it immediately. And within that month, I think we wrote 8 or 9 new songs, maybe 7 or 8 of which made up the album, you know?
Oh,
Yeah, it was a real surprising moment for us as well. Like when we had a record ready to go, and we just started finding these things that just fit together with they're like these little blocks that just you naturally want to build off, that want to be a bigger part of something. Um, so yeah, it was a slower process as well. We pulled in a lot more reference from, lyrically and musically, I think, from, you know, from deeper in our archives, you know. One of the first lyrics I wrote for the record was um was written years before we actually got to recording it. You know, I went back through my lyrics and was looking at them, and some things I'd written 2, 3 years ago just made perfect sense now. They just spoke to me, and they found perfect place with the music that Dean was writing. So it was a very different journey this time, and I think that really lends itself to the sound of the record. At one point we got really um we became not, I don't want to say obsessed, but really focused on the atmosphere of the record that we were trying to make. And that was when I felt like a big change from both of us, a concerted effort to protect it as well. And that was like, a song can only come in if it benefits the atmosphere of the whole record, you know? If
so
it
is
didn't.
there something like key block on the album where you sort of try to gather around?
Yeah, a few songs sort of form in the middle and feel a bit immovable. It feels like there's no scenario. They are now the kind of nucleus. And it was a bit like that. It was like, well, can this new song we've written, whether it's good or not, like we can really like it, but does it work for this album that is there? So yeah, it became a little bit of a kind of can it go and sit next to song X or Y rather than just putting the best songs we've got together. The atmosphere became really important. And I think that just stems back from our favorite records are you go and escape to that place. You go, it maybe isn't how a lot of records are now. They can be made for streaming or whatever, a set of singles. But for us, we still love the art of the album. The journey, we spend the track listing is one of the most fun parts for us. We spend so much time finding these little perfect ins and outs, and it forms over weeks and weeks and months. And then you get to the time where it's like you have to submit it, and you always try some different things. You're like, no, we've found it. It's settled into it.
It's
But
funny what you said about.
yeah, sorry to interrupt, but
Uh,
are you like good also in a way that you know when it's done, so you don't sort of like overthink and overanalyze things?
I think we are.
yeah,
You took the extra time, but we ultimately we are good at switching modes. I think you can keep writing forever, but once it's time to record, you need to go into a different headspace, and it becomes about performance and about capturing the best kind of emotion you can, whether that's on an instrument or in the vocal. It's a different thing. So I think the writing is a kind of line in the sand after that, and we don't necessarily get kind of open any rabbit holes and start writing new bits in the studio itself. We've done all that, and especially if you give yourself more time. This time when we finished that writing, it felt very like, okay, we've got this record, let's go and execute it really well.
So obviously you are now playing for bigger stages than you were playing like a couple of albums ago. So do you take that into consideration when you are making songs, that they need to also feel bigger arenas for you?
no, I don't think I ever think about the venues that we're playing. We just write the songs that we're writing because that's what comes out of us. I think the scale of it happens as a byproduct, you know. It's just that's the nice thing of like having more time together and becoming, ultimately we're playing bigger stages because the band is bigger. And by that, I don't mean more successful. We've built a bigger world. Every album, every month we spend writing, every band practice, every discussion, every tour, we're building the Rattlesnakes world constantly, you know. Some of my favorite times where the most progress happens for our band will be a random phone call. You know, just caught off guard, we'll chat for 2 or 3 hours just about like what we want to do and the direction and where we're going. And, you know, and that can happen at any point, you know. That's to me such a special moment that's kind of like, I don't know, I've done a lot of jobs and it's not, I don't get that in many other of them. You know, it's special to a creative partnership where you have this thing that you've got and, you know, you're protective of it as well.
So did you think about like where you want to go with this upcoming album, like musically, or do you just make songs and then what happens like naturally for you?
I think what we never do is sit down and go, right, this is going to be our whatever record, atmospheric record. Or what we do is talk once some songs are there about what we're feeling about them. And so when we said earlier, there's a little nucleus of songs, we had to decide which ones get to be that. So say you've written a few songs that are a certain style and a few of the other, we are making that decision and going, this little group here feels like exciting. And really not like feels like where we want to go. It's more feels like exciting.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't think you can really put something into the world and say to people, be excited about this if you're not. Like I think a lot of people do because they think it's a route to a, I don't know. But for us, like what we put out is the stuff that we love the most. And then we hope people will join us and love it. But that's the only way round to that. If you go the opposite and try and reverse engineer it, I don't know, I see that's gone wrong for a lot of people. And so yeah, we don't really say we're going to aim for this. It comes a little bit naturally and then we commit to it, I guess is the
But I guess that's the only way to make music, that you're like honest to yourself. If you just try to please whatever people want to hear, it's never gonna work, like in the long run at least.
What happens with that is someone is always disappointed.
Yeah.
Usually it's yourself.
Yeah, true. I want to ask in the end a little bit about the vocal work, because obviously it's like very diverse. And you said that you had took some lessons for it and it was quite big, like I guess like also production wise to make the vocals. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on it earlier with talking about Lorna Blackwood. She's my vocal coach, and she's worked with some amazing singers. You know, she's spent time with Dua Lipa and Florence Welch and Tom Walker, and she just understands voice. She loves rock music, so I think that's why she sort of is constantly calling me like, "When are you coming to see me?" Like, I'm sorry. But she was just with this one, we gave her the scope to produce the vocal on the album. And like I said, like it was just we went to her house, recorded it in her conservatory. There was like
very peaceful environment.
So peaceful. And there was birds chirping outside, the sun was shining, and it's a melancholy, heavy record, you know, vocally. It's there's a sadness in there and a sorrow. And, you know, I was doing some of those takes in this like quite idyllic, peaceful garden, but she would come in and just sit with me and read these lines and say, on this word, I need you to accentuate these 2 letters. And I would focus so hard on that it took me out of the emotion of it and back into the performance. And what she'd said to me afterwards is the emotion is there for you always. Like it's effortless. But what happens is you get lost in that sometimes. And so the direction she gave me was about clarity. And I think from that's what I've got. I've got a depth of, you know, I achieved the close to a complete spectrum of what's possible with my voice at that point, you know, and I'm still now working really, really hard to widen it. I want it to be better. I want to be a great singer, not just a good performer, you know?
Another thing I noticed she did from being in studios with the emotion side, she would with the particularly difficult passages of lyrics, she wouldn't get a ton of takes. She would say she'd sort of have that real deep understanding of that and go, I'm not going to ask you to sing this over and over again. It's not good for the session, it's not good for you. And also it needs to be done. The emotion was more important than the technique at that point. And then in other areas where it's like, look, I know you can say this 10 times and I know this is a big note and we're going to get you to that. And she would, so really interesting, not treating the lyrics as equals. There's some bits that you need to kind of hustle on, and this is about performance. And there's some bits that are like, we're going to capture this moment and we're going to move through. And really interesting to see from my side, like, yeah, just seeing the different ways she would approach it from the lyrics, not even from like whether you're performing loud or quiet. It was about how should I capture this lyric, not just kind of what's happening in the voice, because she understands the literally the physical sides properly. She could show you a diagram and all that. Like it's quite insane.
Yeah, it's mad.
But she really does also understand what you're having to go through in order to sing some of the harder lyrics.
So was it like your biggest learning experience as a vocalist so far?
100%.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I could say yes for it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. It was, and that's so exciting because when I left there, when we listened back to little comps that they'd done of the take, there were times I cried just often, like, because I was so blown away by what I was hearing. I just was like, there's no way that's me. Like I was so surprised by what I was hearing back.
But that's the best feeling.
It was an amazing, tears of joy. I was ecstatic. Yeah, it's wild.
So before we wrap things up, I want to ask you a bit about the future. So what does it hold for you guys after putting the album out?
A lot of touring. We're going on tour. We're going on tour in February, and I think already we're booked pretty much till nearly September, and that will keep going for quite a while. So, yeah, touring is the first thing I thought about. But we're excited because we've got this whole new record, and it feels like a chance to kind of reinvent the show and put something else out there and find out how far we can push that side of it as well. Whenever we push ourselves on record, as soon as that starts to finish and wrap up, your brain then goes, okay, right, now we're going to do that justice. Going to do the record justice on stage.
Yeah.
Have you already prepared the show?
We're in the middle of it, really.
We're starting.
Yeah.
It's getting it. Yeah.
I guess that's also very important, like for you, Frank, as a visual artist, so you can actually see how that this comes to light.
Yeah, we were just discussing. We've spent probably weeks now picking a color of curtains, like fucking. It's like, who are we? Do you know what I mean? What do you think, guys? Is it the champagne or is it the slate? And it's like, fucking hell! Like at some point, at some point there was a moment where we were like, no, we're gonna take a break from this because we need to get this right. Like it's important. So yeah, we're focused on being on the world that we're building, you know, and fiercely protective of it. So yeah.
Thanks a lot, guys, for doing this
Pleasure.
with me and all the best for the future. Anything you want to say to the Finnish fans as a closure?
Just that we're really, really excited to come back. It's always a fucking wild time. Like we've played some crazy shows in Finland.
Yeah, we played a show in Finland where none of our gear arrived at all. And we still...
I nearly did.
You didn't nearly arrive. But I borrowed a guitar from a uni student down the road. And we borrowed pedals from other bands and we played, and it was still good. I don't know if that would happen everywhere else in the world.
That's great.
Finland is a good place for us.
Yeah.
Whatever lineup we're put on, we have good fun. So, yeah. Are we back just for that festival? Or we got the...
So far, yeah.
We'll get booking more shows there.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank
for
you.
the chat.
Thank you. See you soon, yeah?
See you and have a good Christmas time, both of you.
You too, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, same.
Bye-bye.
Bye.